الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So as we continue discussing the book Bulugh al-Maram by Hafiz Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah, and in today's session we'll be discussing matters relating to ar-riba. So we had started the discussion regarding ar-riba as Ibn Hajar rahimahullah in this book Bulugh al-Maram that he mentioned Kitab al-Buyu, so the general overall book of Buyu, and of those books or of those chapters that are covered, he mentioned a chapter that is titled Bab ar-Riba, so discussing matters relating to business transaction. Of those matters is matters relating to ar-riba. So in the previous lesson, we had discussed an introduction regarding matters relating to riba, and today inshallah ta'ala we'll be discussing the hadith that have been mentioned by the author rahimahullah in relation to matters pertaining to ar-riba. So he mentioned some hadith, a few hadith, you can say 2 or 3 hadith in relation to ar-riba as an introduction, then start to discuss other details on that matter. So inshallah ta'ala we'll have those hadith be read, and then we'll start to discuss those hadith, the hadith of Jabir, again also the hadith of Abi Juhayfa, and third the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. تفضل.
Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Hadith 695, narrated Jabir radiallahu anhu. Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam cursed the one who accepts usury, the one who gives it, the one who records it, and the 2 witnesses to it, saying they are all the same, reported by Muslim. Al-Bukhari reported something similar from the hadith of Abu Juhayfa. Hadith 696, narrated Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, usury has 73 categories. The least one in sin is as that of a man who marries, has sexual relations with his mother, and the very essence of usury is the violation of the honor of a Muslim man. Ibn Majah reported it in a short form, and Al-Hakim in a complete one. The latter is also graded Sahih, authentic.
So that's the hadith, or so those hadith that I mentioned are by Ibn Hajar rahimahullah. So that's for those hadith that I mentioned, that he mentioned first the hadith, and where he states, عن جابر رضي الله عنه قال لعن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم آكل الربا وموكل وكاتب وشاهدي وقال هم سوا رواه مسلم. Then he mentioned للبخاري نحوه من حديث أبي جحيفة. So that's also is considered to be a second hadith. So we consider to be a second. So the first hadith, the hadith of Jabir. The second hadith will be the hadith of Bukhari on the authority of Abi Juhayfa. Then he mentioned the third hadith, and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud رضي الله عنهما قال أن النبي عليه السلام قال الربا 73 بابا أيسرها مثل أن ينكح الرجل أمه وأن أربع الربا إرد المسلم الرجل المسلم. رواه ابن ماجه مختصرا والحاكم بتمامه وصححه. So those are the 3 hadith that have been mentioned by the author rahimahullah as an introduction regarding matters pertaining to ar-riba. And also he started regarding this hadith as a form of warning, and this hadith also to clarify that riba is something which is haram, and also something that it is haram, and also that many people that there may be participant in a riba, and all share equally in this evil. So the hadith discussed the evil of riba, and also what comes of the type of punishment that comes with riba, and also regarding what it equates, showing the evil of this act. So as for the first of those things to be discussed, that the author rahimahullah he mentioned regarding concerning that with hadith and Jabir, then also the hadith of Abi Juhayfa, and also third the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. So as for the first hadith that he mentioned, hadith of Jabir, mentioned Rawahu Muslim. So the hadith of Jabir was the first hadith mentioned, the part that the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lana Rasulullah alayhi salam akil riba wa mukilu wa katibu wa shahidai. So it mentioned 4 group of people that are said to be cursed. As for concerning takrij of the hadith that is mentioned here, so As for this first hadith of Jabir, Rawahu Muslim, so the hadith in the Muslim. Also, the hadith can be found in Ahmad rahimahullah in his Musnad. Also, the hadith can be found in Ibn Jarud in his book Al-Muntaqa. So also Ibn Jarud in his book Al-Muntaqa. Also Al-Bayhaqi in his Sunan. So these are of the sources, the books of hadith that have collected the first hadith of Jabir ibn Abdullah ta'ala anhu. So that hadith is found again in Sahih Muslim by also Imam Ahmad rahimahullah in his book Al-Musnad, Ibn Jarud in his book Al-Muntaqa, and fourth Al-Bayhaqi rahimahullah in his Sunan. The second hadith that is mentioned is the hadith that is mentioned للبخاري نحوه من حديث أبي جحيفة. So that's for the hadith of Abu Juhayfa ta'ala anhu, where he mentioned the hadith is collected by Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, and also Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Tayalisi, Tabarani fil Kabir. So these are the other the sources that have narrated the second hadith of that Abi Juhayfa, where he mentioned nahuhu, which is similar to that of the hadith before. And he mentioned that the hadith of Abu Juhayfa, he mentioned by stating that أنه اشترى غلاما, that Abu Juhayfa, that he bought a gulam, a servant, hajjaman, and that servant, he was one who does cupping, so a copper, that I mentioned, فقال إن النبي عليه السلام نهى عن ثمن الدم. Then they mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ, that he forbid the income from selling off the income from dam, which is hijama, which they mentioned ثمن الدم, which is blood cupping, وثمن الكلب, and also whatever is taken income from that of dogs, وكسب البغي, and also what is forbidden is the income, the earning from that of a baghi, which is a lady, that they are those involved in prostitution, selling of themselves, whether that is in common, it would be a female, but in today's time also, male does the same. فَاللَّهُ مُسْتَهَانْ وَعَلَيْهِ تُقْلَانِ. So I mentioned that al-kabs al-baghi, so those people who sell themselves, that type of earning, prostitution, walan, then he mentioned the shahid, walan akil al-riba, then also curse be upon those who takes of riba, wa mukilu, and the ones who give it, wal washima, and the one who does this act of wa mustawshima wal musawwira. So he mentioned concerning these different people that are somewhat cursed. So the shahid from the hadith that he mentioned, lana akil al-riba wa mukil. So the hadith of Bukhari of Abu Juhayfa, it only mentioned two of the group, those that are mentioned by a Muslim. So the hadith of Bukhari, it shares regarding two of those that are mentioned with that of the hadith of Imam Muslim rahimahullah. So it doesn't mention all four, it only mentioned the hadith of Bukhari, only mentioned two groups, not the four that are mentioned in the hadith of Imam Muslim. Then as for the third hadith that is mentioned, that the third hadith, where it mentioned that now that hadith is somewhat under some discussion between the ulama. So as for the next hadith, it's under discussion by the ulama, which is the hadith of Ibn Mas'ud. So they mentioned that after the hadith of Ibn Mas'ud, then that hadith is found in the Ibn Majah. So the hadith of Ibn Mas'ud, it is found with Ibn Majah. Also Bazar in his Musnad. So Al-Bazar also narrate the hadith of Ibn Mas'ud, and the hadith that is in that hadith that is in Ibn Majah, and also, as we mentioned, Bazar, that wording of the hadith it mentioned, Imam Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, muqtasaran, that hadith mentioned that the Prophet said in the hadith, الربا ثلاثة وسبعون بابا, and stop there. So narration with Ibn Majah, where the Prophet Islam, he stated that hadith, it states in the Ibn Majah, الربا ثلاثة وسبعون بابا, that it is 73 baban, and we discuss concerning shu'ba, different levels. So that's the wording of Ibn Majah. As for the more extended version of the hadith, which is in the Hakim, then the hadith of Hakim فيه يعني من طريق محمد ibn Ghalib قال حدثنا عمر ibn Ali به وزاد الحاكم. So Hakim mentioned أيسرها مثل أن ينكح الرجل أمه وإن أربع ربا الرجل المسلم. So that additional wording of the hadith concerning when it starts from Aysir, that the lease is that of a person, of a man having relation with his mother, and that also وأن أربع ربا, and also of riba regarding of that type of edicts of riba is that the person attacking another Muslim, one attacking a Muslim. So that's concerned the hadith. So as for that hadith is of two parts, the shorter version, which is in the Ibn Majah, and the long extended version is in the Al-Hakim. So that's concerning that matter regarding ilm al-hadith. So as for they have mentioned regarding concerning Al-Bazar rahimahullah, he commenting regarding that version which said that in the Al-Hakim, even Al-Hakim rahimahullah, all the hadith to be authentic, but there's some kalam regarding that version of the hadith. So as for the first version in the Ibn Majah, that you find that Shaykh Albani of contemporaries who all that hadith to be sahih, where it mentioned up to the part Al-Riba Thalatha wa Sab'una Baba. So that part of the hadith in the Ibn Majah, the short version, that's in that Ibn Majah, wal Bazar, of those who authenticate and comment upon this, we find the likes of before Shaykh Albani, Busiri. So Busiri of some commentary on Ibn Majah that he mentioned Hada Isnad Sahih. Hada Isnad Sahih. Then also Shaykh Albani rahimullah also authenticate that hadith. Then they mention regarding concerning also the portion of the hadith that is mentioned by Al-Hakim, also that hadith in the Al-Bayhaqi fi Shub al-Iman. And there's a discussion we mentioned, Aysaruha, that the least of this type of riba is the person having relation with his mother. That as for that particular wording of the hadith, they mentioned Al-Hakim qala fi al-hadith Sahih ala shart al-Shaykhain, that hadith is authentic according to the condition of Shaykhain, meaning Bukhari and Muslim. Then they mentioned that as for that ruling of Al-Hakim, they mentioned that sakata anhu al-Dhahabi. So Imam al-Dhahabi rahimahullah, that he has a mukhtasar, he has a condensed short, he has an abridgment of the work of Al-Hakim. And I mentioned sakata an, that he did not comment on that hadith, did not comment on the hadith. But I mentioned that the zahir from this hadith in the Al-Hakim with a longer version, that in the Isnad is a narrator who's Muhammad ibn Ghalib, even though he is thiqa, but is mentioned regarding concerning wahm fil hadith, that also he is a thiqa, credible person in most part, but at times he may have wahm, make errors in some hadith. He have errors in some hadith. Kama qala ad-Daraqutni, as ad-Daraqutni rahimahullah have mentioned. So of the thing that has been observed in this hadith, so of this hadith also being critiqued by way of Muhammad ibn Ghalib, regarding that the least of the example, the least of riba could be compared to that of the person having a relation with his mother. That part of the hadith is somewhat being discussed. So Muhammad ibn Ghalib, being one of the narrators, is somewhat thiqa in general, but in some hadith that he have error. So based upon the difference of the ulama, they have somewhat critiqued that hadith and all it. So they have mentioned that that the hadith, it goes against that of the narration of Ibn Majah regarding the extension. Also, that you'll find that in some narration of the hadith, as I mentioned in Tabarani fil Kabir, that in some narration that the hadith is it is narration of Ibn Mas'ud mawqufan. So some narration of the hadith, I've mentioned the hadith that it is mawquf, meaning that the hadith it goes back to the statement of Ibn Mas'ud and not to the Prophet alayhi salam. So some narration mentioned the hadith goes back to the Prophet alayhi salam, and some narration goes back to Ibn Mas'ud. So the narration that goes back to Ibn Mas'ud mentioned riba bid wa sab'una baban. So some narration that of the hadith is marfu' and some the hadith is mawquf. So some narration the hadith goes back to the Prophet alayhi salam, and some narration the hadith goes back to Ibn Mas'ud. So a khilaf regarding the hadith being mawquf or marfu', going back to the Prophet or to Ibn Mas'ud. Then also you'll find that in the matan there's some little discussion regarding the matan. Some mentioned sab'una baban, some mention thalatha wa sab'un, some mention khamsa wa sab'un, some mention khamsa wa thalathun. So you have different numbers, sab'un, 70, some mention 73, some mention khamsa wa sab'un, 75, some mention khamsa wa thalathun, and some mention 35. So regarding that matter, regarding some of the wording in hadith is also under question because of the various wording or numbers that are given. So you find some of the ulama have somewhat make istinkar upon this particular matan. And amongst them, that Al-Bayhaqi rahimahullah yaqal, hada isnad sahih. That isnad is sahih, wal matan munkar. Bihada isnad. But also the wording, the matan, the text of the hadith is somewhat munkar. It has some deficiency. As I mentioned, that there's some awham that may have occurred, some awham, some errors that have occurred inside the text of the hadith. So that's concerning that discussion regarding that particular hadith in general. So overall, that those are the hadith that have been mentioned by Ibn Hajar rahimahullah. So I mentioned that there's 3 hadith. So the first hadith of Jabir, the second that mentioned that 4 group of people are cursed, the second hadith of Abi Juhayfa, the hadith of Abi Juhayfa rahimahullah in the Bukhari, but it only mention of those that are somewhat the Prophet are forbidden of regarding or curse regarding lan akla riba wal mukilu, that the Prophet that he cursed the one who eats of riba and the one who gives it. And the third hadith of Ibn Mas'ud also it mentioned regarding riba ثلاثة وسبعون baban, that it mentioned that it have over 73 bab. Then it started to mention the least of these is the example of a person having relation with his mother. And arba riba, the act of the person attacking his brother. So as for Sheikh Fawzan Hafidullah Ta'ala, that he mentioned regarding concerning al-Fadha, the hadith, that he mentioned that Allah, that the Prophet Islam, he cursed. The Prophet Islam, he cursed regarding of those people. So the word Allah, but with the Prophet Islam, that they mentioned that ad-dua ala madhkurin, that the Prophet Islam is making a supplication against those that are mentioned in the hadith. Those 4 group of people are mentioned where ibtihad and rahmatillah, for them to be removed from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. So Allah is ibtihad min rahmatillah, is for a person to be removed from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. So the asl of lan min Allah is al-ibtihad, and rahmah is for a person to be removed from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. So that's concerning a land from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And a land between al-khalq. So a land, when a person mentioned about the curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that a person is asking for a person to be removed from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mercy, not to receive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. As for a land between al-khalq, where a person that is asab wa dua, is a person making dua against a person. So the person asab, abusing that person with dua against that person. So that's concerning the meaning regarding alan, and also alan, also with the ulama, it's an indication regarding that matter is a major sin. So when the word alan is used by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or by his Prophet alayhi salam, that's indicating that act is something which is a major sin. That I mentioned akla riba, that the Shaykh mentioned, meaning akhid riba, that a person who takes riba, the words who receive a riba, even the person receiving, even if he doesn't make use of it. So they mentioned the word akhla riba, that it is used as a person who takes of riba and eats of riba, regarding concern that this occur most often. So a person might take it, will a person make use of it or not? The fact that the person have received it, then that person is under this curse. So akhas al-akl, by the person who makes benefit and make use of that riba that they have accepted. But also, as we mentioned, if the person may accept it but do not make use of it, then also that person is cursed. Mukilu, as concerned to mu'ti riba, the one who gives the riba, the one who offers the riba, is mafa'il, so the one who is now offering, giving that riba to someone. So also is also cursed. He's also cursed. Or also the ulama mentioned also yadkhul fihi, also the one who is included, those are also included regarding of those who offering the riba, is also a person may act as an agent. So one who may act as an agent, so is acting in passing that riba on to someone else, then also is included as those who are offering, giving of riba. Then I mentioned the third group of people, which is katibu. And it mentioned regarding al-katib, which is katib considered the person who actually write the contract. So the person does the paperwork of writing the contract, the agreement. Then that person who put this contract together and put these terms regarding riba being included, then they are also cursed. They are also included in that curse. And that then I mentioned the fourth group of people concerning ash-shahidai. So they mentioned in this hadith, in the Muslim, shahidai and the 2 witnesses. So normally regarding things of being witness to something, normally it's 2 witnesses. So I mentioned that in this case, even concerning witnesses, those 2 witnesses or witnesses, that also have witness or signed to, they have signed to this agreement, then also they're included in this curse, as they're being witness to something which is haram. They're being witness to something which is a contract which is not allowed in Islam and forbidden. So by the fact that they are being witness to it and testifying to it, then and agreeing with it in principle, then also they are cursed. Also, in some narration in Abu Dawood, it mentioned washahidi, concerning the washahidu, and also the one who's a witness, a single. So I mentioned that that's concerning ifrad ala irat jinn. So anyone, whether a single or a group of people, that be a witness to this contract that includes riba, then or sign off also as witnesses, then also they are cursed. They are part of those that are cursed. So those are 4 groups of people that I mentioned. Then had he mentioned at the end I mentioned wahum sawa, that they are all equal. That they are all equal. I mentioned that equal in the sense of that they have all participated in the thing of the sin of riba, and also they are all cursed. So they are all equal in by way of they are all sawa, they are all involved and included by way of they are all sinful in their act, in whatever role that they played, and also they are all cursed because of the role that they place in this act which is haram. Then Sheikh mentioned regarding some narration mentioned ثلاثة baban, bab yani shu'ab. So about concern different levels. So this concerning of different levels regarding riba. So riba of various different levels. As we mentioned the hadith regarding, so he mentioned regarding that an example of a person fornicating with his mother, showing that the seriousness and the evil of this. Showing the seriousness of this act, where a person is compared, the similitude is given of the person who have intimacy with his mother. So the word act, an-nikah, مثل أن ينكح. So an-nikah, in what is meant by an-nikah regarding either nikah, either mean al-wat, the person having intimacy, or al-aqd, or the person signing a marriage contract. So the word an-nikah can take 2 meanings depending on the context. At times taking the meaning of intimacy, and at times meaning the person al-aqd, with a person gone through the marriage contract of the marriage contract. So I mentioned regarding concerning that wa arba riba, regarding arba riba concerning that riba concerning al-ziyada wa irtifa, the highest level. So regarding concerning the irtifa, it has been raised, elevated. Ziyada, something have increased. So that's concerning, meaning concerning afshah, of the worst forms of riba, of the worst forms of riba. Wa akbah, the most evil, disgusted forms of riba, is regarding al-rajul al-Muslim. It's concerned that a Muslim that trying to bring his brother down, trying to drag his brother down, as in some narration mentioned, min arba al-riba al-istitala ala fi ard al-Muslim, with a person can study where one try to exceed their limit with their brother, try to exceed their limits and take more from their brother that they should. So that's concerning of the hadith that is mentioned regarding the seriousness of riba. Then the Shaykh discussed concerning that the hadith as for what can be taken, what can be extracted from this hadith. That hadith, al-hadith dalilun ala tahrim al-riba. So the hadith is very explicit regarding the impermissibility of a riba. That riba is forbidden. That riba is forbidden. And also annahu min kabair dhunub. And that also riba, from what has been taken, that riba, based upon those comparison and what have been said against riba, that riba, it also falls into those which is said to be of major sins. So as we had mentioned before, that the ulama who have written in major sin of Dhahabi, al-Haythami, and others who have written regarding a riba, that they all mention a riba, and it falls under the top acts of major sin. Riba fall under the top act of the major acts of riba, on the top level. So it shows regarding that a riba being of those which of a major sin, and of the worst of them, the Prophet of Islam of course all those that are involved, and also in the ijma between the ulama regarding the impermissibility of riba. So the ulama in general, that regarding riba being haram, being impermissible, that they all agree on this matter. But they may disagree regarding certain tafasil, but in general that they are in agreement regarding that riba is forbidden. So from the hadith that the shahid and the katib, that they're included, even though they are indirectly, they're directly, but not direct, they're directly involved, but not directly receiving of any of the benefits regarding the monetary benefit of the riba or the financial benefit of regaining anything, but the fact that they are witness to something which is an evil, then they are cursed. Then they become cursed. So the shahid, that they are cursed, and I mentioned that most of the person do so with ilm. So the person who signed to it or wrote the contract or the agreement, that they are aware of exactly what they're doing and what will be in and what is involved, then that person, if it does so, if it is done out of ilm, then that person, he falls under that curse. But I mentioned if the person was to do so, a witness to something that of riba, but he wasn't aware that this was a riba matter, but he was pulled in as a witness, but unaware that it was something that involved riba, then that person is excused because of lack of ignorance. But it shows also that, but for the Muslim also, that so the person is not under that curse. That person not under the curse. But so for the Muslim to be very mindful regarding things that they are witness to. So they mention also from this, it shows regarding that this wa'id, this curse, is not just restricted to the ones who take riba, but also the ones who give, and also those that are the others that are involved, and that also of this matter regarding taking of riba, consuming of riba, then this would include regarding concerning whether the person take riba for their own financial reason, or the person take riba so as to purchase a house, so doing so because of to purchase a house, also a car or clothing or any matter, even concerning going to university. So the person may so any form of contract that involve riba, as a part of that contract, they become something which is haram, and the person is involved in riba and is cursed or she's cursed. Then also they mention that regarding concern to know that so where riba is said to be of the major sin in the hadith, the Prophet that the hadith that in the Bukhari, Muslim, the Prophet mentioned istanabu sab'a mubiqat, that one to avoid 7 mubiqat, and after they mention akla riba. So they mention shirk billah, as-sihr, قتل النفس التي حرم الله بالحق, then mention وأكل riba. So in this hadith it mention of those that are cursed, the fourth of those mentioned in the hadith is akl riba, the one who eat of riba, consume of riba. So show that is something which is that the Muslim is something which is destructive, and for the Muslim to avoid completely. So they mention here, the Sheikh mentioned 5th of those points regarding this matter, tahrim kitabat al-uqud al-riba bayna mutarabi'in, that this matter regarding riba, that it is something which is haram, even those who make those contracts. So a person may be a solicitor or the likes, putting this contract together in any form or shape, then and also witnesses being drawn, then all this is haram, and it includes those who are cursed. And to the extent the Shaykh mentioned that also, this also includes concerning what we have today regarding banks. So banks that operates on riba, interest, usury, that these banks, then they will fall into this regarding so banks and taking out those banks that are involved in riba, then also they fall into this. So the Shaykh mentioned that so generally concern the person, which is for the person to avoid working in an institution of those establishment of banks, because banks is established regarding a riba. So for the person working in a bank, then something the Muslim should avoid completely, that they are mentioned regarding concern. So the person is the one who work in the bank as one of the tellers, or the one the assistant in the bank, or even a person that Haris, the one who's the guard of the bank. So the person who's work in that area, it is something which is the person should try their best to avoid. One should avoid completely. And also it shows regarding that of this matter regarding attacking the Muslim honor, then also the hadith mentioned that is also is something which is haram. So of those things that the Muslim should avoid is attacking the honor of the Muslim and wronging his Muslim brother. Then also this is something that the Muslim should avoid of this towards his brother. So wronging of his brother is something that he should avoid. So also regarding concern this matter regarding riba, then applies regarding in all areas. So for instance, not even the banks, those institutions that is operate and function based upon a riba, interest, usury, such as the banks in all their operations. Then as we mentioned that for one to avoid working in such institution, and also it applies also regarding that this act regarding a riba, it is something which is haram. These institutions that operate or individuals that operate their business based upon a riba usury, then that becomes something that's a haram form of transaction. And also with this that it shows also to warn against, so a warning against a riba because of the and all those facets things that are attached to it, and also individuals who are involved, and also regarding concerns of the thing that seeking out to remove this practice as something which is haram and not for the Muslim to indulge in it. And also of those things is regarding that also to note that Muslim countries that possesses bank that have riba, then also to see this as something which is halal. This is something which is haram. So regardless of it being a Muslim country operating as a bank that involve in usury transactions and function at capacity, that's haram. So even though it may be it's there, I'm not even though it is there by those in authority, then it doesn't it doesn't make it halal. So even though it exists and does occur in Muslim country, and it is known to every Muslim that riba is haram, but these institution banks may exist in Muslim country, this does not justify and make this act halal. It still remain haram and something that is to be removed by those who have that ability. But for the general Muslim to know that it being there, it is still haram. It being a Muslim country, it's still considered to be haram. And also of those who make this ta'awun al-ithm, and those who have somewhat, so any place that allows these type of institution to function, then they are cooperating regarding ta'awunu al-ithm wal-udwan. Then they are also participating in this ithm wal-udwan by giving allowance for these institutions to operate wherever. So this also is something which is for the Muslim to be mindful that something may up in a Muslim country or amongst Muslim, it doesn't mean that things become halal or to be seen as halal, but rather it remains as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasul alayhi salam have ruled on those things as haram. So that inshallah ta'ala, so these are the hadith that discuss regarding that the impermissibility of this type of transaction regarding a riba, and that those that are linked to it directly or indirectly by being of those who give and receive, or those who write, or those who witness, then all are wrong in their actions as it revolves around a riba. So that inshallah ta'ala will end this discussion, and the author rahimahullah then will start to discuss other matters that to clarify more in detail. There are more intricate details regarding a riba. So this hadith that he started with is going to somewhat as a form to clarify the impermissibility of riba and to how it can impact on those who may be indulgent or complacent regarding a riba. So that inshallah ta'ala will end this session. وبالله تعالى توفيق وهذه إلى السبيل والآخر دعوانا الحمد لله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.